Howdy, howdy. We are live on a Friday night with one final episode of the Star Trek Con audio drama to discuss. But we can now get the full context of the series. We now know the entire story they're telling there in this not a sequel, not a prequel, in betweenquel, right? That's the correct term when you're going in
Yeah,
between Space Seed and the Wrath of Khan.
yeah, it's catchy.
So we're gonna go ahead and dive on into this. I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
I'm Miss Taylor.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 355th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we are discussing Star Trek Con Episode 9, the finale episode, Eternity's Face, written by Kirsten Beyer and David Mack, story by Nicholas Meyer, directed by Fred Greenhalgh. And before we dive into that, just real quick thank you and shout out to the Tex-Trek Patreons, to the Tex-Trek Patreon supporters, the people who make our weekly show possible. So thank you so very much. Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Dot, Geek Filter, Quarkspar, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, Joel Vallis, Arthur Lamoureux, our associate producer, Chris Garris, Dave Farabee, Dave A. Gregory, Joe Saporito, Wanda Valentine, Rin, and our anonymous supporters. As always, I like to remind everyone we do monthly watch parties with our patrons, and the next one's coming up in about a week on November 15th. And also, if you're able to support at the bridge crew level or higher, we like to throw additional watch parties for your birthday. And we have one of those coming up this month for our longtime supporter, Joanne. And cool. We're going to be watching the DS9 episode Second Sight. So that's also going to be happening on November 15th. We're going to have some other episode then, too, but I haven't quite figured that out yet. But the birthday...
What's the premise of Second Sight?
Oh yeah, thank you for asking, Dave, because that's not a super common episode, but it is an earlier Deep Space Nine episode, a season 2 episode, and it's the one where the scientist guy Sediak or whatever his name was, but he was wanting to watch the star explode. It's one of those like big ego scientist guys that you always talk about, Dave.
Yeah.
And then he had the wife who was this telepathic alien who had like this other split personality that I became like a love interest for Cisco.
Okay, yeah. You know, I like standalone episodes like that, especially ones that are get a little forgotten sometimes. It's fun to revisit them and be like, oh yeah, this is why I want those long ass seasons to return, as unlikely as that is.
Joel in the live audience says, to paraphrase the Salon, join the Patreon so Tex-Trek can get some Enterprise D Legos. But I know a lot of people are super excited for the Star Trek Legos coming out. I'm not. I like Legos, but what I would be more excited about is if Bandai brought back their snap together Star Trek ship models that were like good quality, were like already colored and everything, didn't have to paint them, and you snapped them together. Because I like that type of I don't know, little plastic assembly things. I like building Gunpla, the Gundam franchise, the little Japanese robots. I love building that more than Legos. So I like Star Trek to go back to Bandai at some point. But
I put together a Transformers, one of those little snap together things, and it was, if not Bandai, it was very high quality, and it was pretty impressive. I had never really done one, and I thought it was pretty cool.
But yeah, that is some I guess big news for a lot of people. Lego did confirm that and I think everyone knew it. It was the obvious one to go with. But the Enterprise D will be their first kit. So, what would I really love them to do though would be like to make Lego tricorders and phasers, and I want like props I can play with more than the ships. But
I guess they tend at the stuff that can interact with their minifigures and things.
Yeah,
they do. It's not that they don't make larger things though, so I can see them doing it.
Although, a hardcore Lego pro would be like, fool, just get the bricks yourself and build your own phaser. Just, I'm sure it's possible to do with the stuff that's out there. So
they're like Lego engineers are very refined. They would own whatever you would do. So don't even try. It's gonna suck. It's gonna look like some kid's dumb Duplo thing.
I bet someone out there has done it. So
I'm sure. I need those skilled Lego craftsmen to do it. I can follow their instructions, but.
One year at Star Trek Las Vegas, they actually had a Lego art exhibit. There is some Lego builder there. He's like, I made all these things, all these Star Trek things out of Lego. But they were like, oh, look, here's a TV set showing Shatner and Nichelle Nichols having their famous interracial kiss on a TV screen. And that's all just like built out of Legos. So that's kind of cool. But
by the way, I don't know if you got around to saying it, but I guess their opening thing is the Enterprise D. Which I've seen images of for Lego, big old $400 set, and has like the whole crew. I saw Guinan in there.
Yeah, I think Ensign Rowe too. Like I think even Ensign Rowe is one of the minifigs.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. If you have $399.99, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I mean I don't plan on purchasing it. But I hope everyone who... I guess there's not an Ensign Rowe. Did I imagine that? Okay, I guess I did. Or no, who comes with the... Because they have the shuttlecraft also. Yeah, so... But yeah, it looks like the shuttle... The person who comes with the shuttlecraft, to me, looks like Ensign Rowe, but what do I know? But yeah, I hope everyone who does want to spend $300 for that Lego set to if that's what makes you happy, then I think it's a good investment and have all the fun in the world with that.
Hell yeah.
There's some other news, I guess, less positive stuff, but with the rearrangement of Paramount now solidifying under the Ellisons and Skydance. There's some information that came out from Variety. They put out some article recently that there is a lot of stuff in there that I don't really know or care much about, but I guess the relevant Star Trek stuff. No Kelvin for movie. It sounds like that the people in charge of Paramount Pictures at this time currently have made the decision. They don't plan to. There had been scripts in development, and they've talked about like all these different directors, and just it's been going on for like a decade almost. Star Trek Beyond came out in 2016. This is the first time they've ever definitively said like, okay, we're actually not even going to try anymore. We're going to move on with whatever the next Star Trek movie is going to be something very different. It's not going to be a Kelvin movie with Chris Pine and Zach Quinto and those guys.
Guess that means it's time for them to move on to the Kelvin Next Gen era.
Recast the Next Gen. Yeah, that was always kind of the obvious reboot for the, what are you going to do for your next movies, But yeah, I was never super on board with that. That never sounded that neat to me, but I mean, sure, I guess that is a possibility.
I think, if you kind of accept the Kelvin verse as it did do something effectively, which was it kind of reignited the energy of Star Trek. Whatever you think of the movies, it definitely did that, and it kind of brought a new audience in too, who discovered a lot of the shows and things. Many of them did, and I imagine if they were to do Picard and Company, that they could continue that. It seems kind of crazy to just do like 3 movies, but that was they got a trilogy out of it. Personally, I had sort of, we've talked about this any number of times. I kind of made my peace with the Kelvin verse, and got to where I really enjoyed all of them on various levels, as kind of action Trek and a little more quippy Trek and all that stuff. But um, so yeah, I'm kind of a little sad to see it's not happening, but it seemed like it was the way things were going. I'm not shocked or anything.
Jill in the live audience is saying that she wants more audio dramas, and yeah, I could definitely uh, see that. Like I've really enjoyed Star Trek Con and would like them to, but if they can do this good of a job on kind of like their first big one they did,
Yeah,
maybe
they
maybe
came
try
out swinging,
again.
I guess.
Uh, I guess the other news that I wanted to share is just that it also sounds like Paramount really, really, really sucks. Like it sounds like the new people in charge are just making some of the absolute worst choices you could make in regards to they basically now seem to like Larry Ellison and his big media empire he's trying to build. They've seemed to make it very clear that they're fine being kind of the a propaganda arm of the fascist Trump regime, and that really pisses me off. But I'm really disappointed to see someone like Barry Wise put in charge of CBS News, in charge of 60 Minutes, and basically anything under the Paramount umbrella now, as far as news goes, is going to be a pro-Trump fascist platform, and it's
It's
got
kind
me.
of hard to imagine anything less Star Trek
Yeah,
in ethos.
It's
it's gotten
depressing
me
as hell.
to the point to where I don't know if I want to participate next year in covering the new episodes of Starfleet Academy and Strange New Worlds. Like I don't want to help promote their new products. So if I don't, see something different with Paramount, I can no longer guarantee that yeah, like Tex-Trek will be covering Starfleet Academy as it comes out. Like maybe those 10 weeks we'll talk about something else. But I'm extremely disappointed with the people who own Star Trek now.
Yeah, it's a level beyond the sort of the broader there's no ethical consumption under capitalism kind of thing. We're all compromised in some way, but there's quite a difference between that and actively supporting a fascistic regime. Again, antithetical to everything at the Trek's heart.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people who like they pay their bills making Star Trek content, and I don't judge anyone else who's going to be covering those shows, but I just think I don't want to help promote. I don't want to help generate revenue for people who are in league with fascism. So yeah, I'm sorry if that's going to be disappointing to anyone out there, but it's something that we're going to have to talk about and figure out. But just wanted to
Yeah,
let
this
it be known
conversation
that
to be continued.
yeah,
But
it's
it's not something that it's easy to compromise on. There's not like any, oh, well, I'm just a little fascist. Just kind
yeah,
of.
yeah. But like we're coming to a head with a lot of stuff. So, and I promise I'll get into talking about Khan in a moment. But when we have a regime currently doing everything they can to undermine our democratic elections coming up in the midterms, literally trying to rig the elections. We have a president who already has a history of denying election results. If he doesn't like the results, he'll say like, "Oh, I don't believe it. It was rigged." And we're on the cusp of. It's not like if this is going to happen, but when this happens, when our fascist president tries to ignore midterm election results, when he tries to cancel elections, when he tries to stay in for a third term or beyond the second term, like that is going to happen, and it doesn't matter if you want this to just be something you don't deal with. You're just like I don't care. I don't want to pay attention to it. I want to ignore it. It doesn't matter. It's going to be your problem eventually, and you're going to have to decide: are you okay with that or are you against it? And I want to make it, pretty damn clear that Tex-Trek is going to be against it, and I'm going to be against it. And if
We didn't all
Paramount,
ride along with Cisco to bend over for a bunch of Cardassians.
It would be kind of funny to do like an anti-fascist like series during all of
Yeah.
the like of Star Trek specific episodes where we like do backtracking retrospectives on those specific like ethical questions that
Their
Star
biggest
Trek has asked.
pushbacks and questions about that.
Instead
Yeah.
of covering like Starfleet Academy, do episodes like that.
Well, it's interesting because Khan, when we'll talk about this, for sure touched on some of these things. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to be an interesting year next year. But Paramount has seemed to have made the decision that they're going to be on the fascist Trump side of things. So, well, if that's the way they want it, then that's the way it's going to be. But now that everyone's in like a delightful mood, let's talk about the final episode of Star Trek Con. I'm just going to, per usual, recap the episode by reading the synopsis, and then I'll kind of expand on that with spoilers. But the synopsis reads, Dissent among Khan's followers threatens Venture's launch. Khan faces one last threat to his rule, and a final decision that seals his fate. So yeah, basically the threat to the Venture is kind of weird how they worded that. The threat to the Venture is also the one last threat to Khan's rule. It's Ivan. Ivan returns, tries to take over the Venture. He's defeated the Elborians and Khan and Ursula and basically like everyone but Ivan. And I guess we don't see how many people are on his side, but maybe a couple. But basically everyone else teams up against Ivan. And most of them die. The ship launches. Khan decides to give Delmonda his seat, so he stayed behind. And Khan freaks out and breaks his radio because he thinks that his daughter blew up. And so he just stays a madman questing for revenge on SETI Alpha 5. And Callie grows up and becomes Rosalind Lear. And now we know why Dr. Lear wanted to go research these Khan logs so badly. So it all came together in the end, I guess. But we can each give our opening statement, just say our broad thoughts on it before we go in the episode breakdown. I'll go first, then I'll turn it over to Dave. But I thought it was a solid conclusion to the series. This particular episode never quite blew me away. I felt like the story kind of had a lot of potential to do that. But it did give me a couple of moments that felt surprisingly satisfying and well-earned, and it did get me more emotional a couple of times than I thought it would. So it didn't reinvent the wheel. It's not like a, I don't know. It felt like at times that it could have been like a, one of those like truly great, memorable, like, oh man, this is like a City on the Edge of Forever or In the Pale Moonlight, but as an audio drama. So not quite on that cusp, but still pretty good now that it's all said and done. A lot of things happened in this episode that I had predicted, many of which we talked about, but there were, as I was mentioning, some surprises. There were a few unexpected reveals and developments I really liked. Ursula came through in the end. I liked that. That was cool. I didn't know that I needed that, but I liked seeing it when it happened. I found myself surprisingly enjoying Joachim in this episode and how he's just kind of rolling with Khan's ever-changing heart and ever-changing plans. He's like, okay, I'm going to go on the ship with Khan. Oh, wait, I'm going to stay behind and lead our people against Ivan. Oh, wait, I'm going to go lead everyone up to the surface. He's just like, whatever Khan wants him to do. He's like always a good sport about it. So that kind of amused me. But also at the very end, we see, Joachim has a particular relevance to Khan that I thought was interesting. And I think from the very beginning, I was always hoping for this to be a story about Khan. He was always going to bite off more than he can chew. He's going to fly too close to the sun like Icarus. He's going to be too aggressive and just overall too Khan-ish. And he's always going to bring himself down in the end. Doesn't matter which century, doesn't matter what planet he's on. And maybe that's still true in this story, I think. But what I really take away from this now, that from the ending, I think the message of this, it's a story that I really like, that I've liked for a long time, that I kind of like it when it's told and retold. But the message that, we all get an opportunity for redemption, but it's up to us to actually do it and follow through on it. So I thought that was cool to have that in here. I didn't really see that until this final episode. But Dave, what about you?
Yeah, everything does come together in this episode, and oh my god, they killed Paolo kind of off screen, just boom, like that. I was thinking about it, and I think that of the basically of the colonists, I guess I would say my favorite, and the ones that had the sort of most redemptive sort of qualities were Paolo, Mado, and Ursula. She was a dynamic character who could fluctuate, but it was interesting to watch her, and I thought that they always did a good job making her kind of a complex person who could kind of blow this way or that depending on her mental state. But obviously, the really big thing here was that there was a sort of 11th hour act of redemption for Khan, and there was also, of course, the other big thing in this. There's like big throwdown with Ivan. And I sort of expected that the Ivan thing was going to have to happen like that. And so that was a little expected. I wasn't sure, the redemption, I didn't know if they were going to go for it. And it's a plot point that I'm going to have to think about, and we'll talk about it while, for this episode, of course. I thought it was interesting, because we don't want to see, and we've said this every single episode of this, we don't want to see a tyrant exonerated, I don't think. But at the same time, Khan is a fictional character. He does have a certain mystique. He's kind of almost like Doctor Doom in Marvel. He's kind of like sometimes what we almost want a villain to be, like we do invest a little romance in these characters, even as awful as he becomes. But I thought it was pretty notable to me that his big redemptive act, sending his daughter off world, telling them, I'm sorry, what's the name of the Elborian? Delmonda. That it was him recognizing in himself that he has these inherent flaws and kind of brokenness, that Kali needs something better. His wife promised something better. He can't live up to it. There was also a little bit in there about he had to stay with his people too, that he was going to be true to them. But I think in the end, the main thing for me, that my biggest takeaway was that Khan sort of had this last moment of sort of being noble by realizing he can't be noble, which I thought was interesting. So he's like, I've just got to get her out of here. And so he wasn't truly exonerated, but he was, making peace with Delmonda.
This is the second best thing, though. If you can't be noble, then at least
know that you can't.
Yeah, at least own up to it.
Yeah, and that is an interesting story to tell, and it fit in with because oh my gosh, the Nicholas Meyer, the writer director guy, he because he steeps so much of his stuff in literature and Shakespeare and stuff like that. I was like, this has the feel of a Greek drama. I will admit, I kind of wanted Khan to be more of his own foil. I wanted him to have to fall harder from his own misdeeds in it. But I do think that it's a very interesting Greek tragedy thing to show him to be capable of self-examination, that one last time, only to kind of bury that completely when he thinks he's seen his daughter's death. It reminds me, like, that's a Shakespeare thing too, Romeo and Juliet thinking each other are dead and taking their own lives. So many Shakespeare plays have some sequence where somebody thinks something happens and they change their destiny forever. They kill somebody over it. They themselves get killed over it. So I felt like there were those kind of echoes that I like from Nicholas Meyer of literary and tragic themes. Beyond that, I'll work out some of the rest of it while we talk about it.
You're muted.
I just said, cool. Taylor, how about you?
Well, sorry I have a little bit of cold, so I may sound a little funky, but I liked this episode. I think it rounded it out really well for me. I feel like you guys both talked about it really well, so I don't have much to add. I do think I liked the tragedy aspect of it more, I think, than maybe Dave. I actually felt like it was a really low blow because Khan like actually did it right for once, but he doesn't know that. And so, like, you know, all of these times in the past, and Ursula calls it out multiple times that he's failed to do all these things. And, like, you know, he constantly has a history of failure and, like, thinking he's going to succeed. And this is, like, the one time that he actually does succeed, like, getting Kali off world and, like, making the right choice to send Delmonda. And he doesn't even know, like, that worked out. So I think that's, like, pretty, pretty good because, like, it just seals his fate in a way, and like he doesn't get redemption. Like he doesn't get to feel good about this one thing that did work out, like because of all these other things that, you know, he's awful in some other ways. So I don't know, like does he really deserve to like, I don't know, like have this like victory, for example?
You know, that's the kind of an interesting meta discussion to have along the way, because you know it gets brought up. You know, like what's the role that other people have in when someone has a you know sort of a flaw like Khan does to try and rehabilitate them. Do they deserve redemption and all of that stuff?
Right.
That's
But
that's an
it
interesting
also
question.
is kind of on him as well because they were able to fix comms and tried to reach out, but he destroyed the comms on SETI Alpha 5. So like he's still his own tragedy, you know, like if he had just been more patient and, you know, just not immediately gone into destructive mode, then he would know. And so there's always just that twinge of tragedy with Khan. And so I really liked how all of that played out. But yeah, I also really liked that when he decided to change spots with Delmonda on the ship, that they brought up the Cortez stuff, which like mirrors earlier in the season with MacGyver's like telling him about the conquistador things. And so I don't know, I felt like a really good full circle episode to me. Like there was good references to multiple other episodes and tying back in obviously to Dr. Lear and her research and why. So I felt like this was a really strong finale. I did feel a little bit like bummed at the end. I was like, man, that's it. Like I feel like there could still be more. Like I was still really bummed. Like, and like when Paolo died in the beginning, I was like, that's it. Like we're not getting more on that. So, I mean, it felt a little rushed, like a little, but also like, you know, rounded out. So I don't know exactly how I feel. I feel like I wanted more, but I'm really happy with what we got.
You know, what followed was just 10 years of them eating SETI eels. That's it.
Ugh.
You know that gross sound effect? Didn't I think Ivan ate one, right?
Oh no, it was he did eat one in this one.
He
But
ate like a larva or
in
something.
an earlier
I assume.
episode, you hear Delmonda eat fish, and that was the really
That was
gross
gross.
sound effect.
They didn't need to
The
include
sound
all
effects
that.
guys, they went to town. But yeah, just imagine a whole episode of that eel eating sound.
Yeah.
No, but I think they probably made a pretty good choice for dramatic purposes. That like to more or less decide that Khan's story kind of ended. He, in his way, he basically died when Kali left, and he thought she was dead, and
Yeah.
everything after was just him turning his bitterness and the increasing loss of his people into hatred, and like essentially there was no arc per se there. That was just the brutal survivalist parts of it.
Yeah, he lost all of his character development because of the tragedy. So I think that's actually pretty realistic, like in real life. I've talked to a therapist about this where it's like people actually revert back to what they know, like when they've experienced such a traumatic event, like all this growth that they've learned and all these things they learned to process. Like during a traumatic event or immediately after, they regress like tremendously to what's comfortable and like what they were like before
For
they put
sure.
all this work in. And so I think that was actually a really realistic outcome for Khan here.
Yeah, Dave, that's something that you and I have actually talked about on the show in the past, but how a lot of times in fiction, people do have these very linear arcs of growth, whereas in real life, we do tend to change and develop a lot less consistently. We might,
Right. It's
you know,
organic. There's backsliding in
Yeah.
it. Sophisticated like TV dramas and novels can certainly dramatize that, but a lot of times it is in a way more satisfying as a viewer, at least for I think especially in genre shows, sort of to kind of have somewhat more delineated arcs, to go ahead and just have it right out there.
Yeah, and just a little bit more simpler to communicate the broadly the same ideas,
For
just
sure.
makes it a little bit easier for the audience to consume. Not that that's always like the most important thing, but it probably should be a factor most of the time.
Yeah, I will say like Star Trek was never meant to be like hard sci-fi. It was informed by real more serious science fiction, like harder science fiction, I guess. Not more serious. Star Trek is serious, but is informed by that. But it also was meant to be approachable to a mass audience. So that is built into Star Trek's character too.
Very much. But we can go ahead and move into the episode breakdown and just run through this final episode beat by beat, starting with the beginning. We open with Ivan and Ursula. Kind of where the last episode ended was with Ivan revealing he's survived for 5 years on the surface and he's in the bunker where Ursula and Paulo were sent. We also get like that quote from Khan about like eternity's face always evolving towards its final form. I guess that's like the very first thing we hear. Which was also in the very first episode of the audio drama, so that kind of bookends it.
Right, and he definitely, in his sort of bitterness at the end of this episode, revisits it one more time.
Yeah. But I re-listened to the first 7 episodes of the series. I didn't do last week's, but the 7 before that I re-listened to today. So I was like, oh yeah, he's talking about like the same Face of Eternity stuff in this first episode. So, we open with having Paulo killed off. I guess it's not off screen, but off speaker. I don't know.
Yeah, son of a bitch. Can't believe. Jill in the comments says she was disappointed with Ursula for letting Ivan slide for fighting in quotes with Paulo, and I was too. I sort of found it believable of her.
I feel like when that happened, she was thinking like, "Oh, I'm going to kill you as soon as you give me that seat on the ship that I really just want for Mado. I'm going to kill you with this phaser." I think that's the only reason why she went along with Ivan. Because like even after like she agrees to team up with Ivan, she kind of like whispers to herself to Paulo like, "I hope wherever you are, there are stars." Now you could see like, oh yeah, she was still concerned about. So on re-listen, I'm like, oh yeah, she was just playing Ivan. Is what I think.
Wasn't sure if because she was also, we know she was kind of, she really didn't have much to live for. She had accepted that Mado had Kali to raise,
but she still wanted Mado to be the seat on the ship. And the only reason why she agrees to help Ivan is she says like, I want one of the 4 seats on the ship.
Right.
And we later see, she really wanted it for Mado, not so. Even though they'd been like broken up for 5 years, that was still priority to her, was to get Mado off the planet.
But like in the previous episodes, we had seen where, because she kind of knew Khan wasn't coming back. She was sort of accepted that they would probably just be subsisting for a little while and then die off.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I guess Ivan, when he first appeared, other than the fact that she'd just be like, what the fuck? It's not like, and it's not like I expect her to go and like kung fu him. He sounds like he's basically the deadliest fighter there is there, except for Khan.
Yeah.
But I guess you probably did see like, let's see what, let's kind of nod and agree and see what's going to happen with this.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, she also was outnumbered because Hassan had sided with Ivan, so it was 2 against 1. And also, I think low-key, she doesn't give a shit if it's Ivan or Khan. Like, she's like, man, like, y'all are both, like, pretty shitty options.
She hates both of them.
Like, yeah, I don't really feel like she's like, oh, I'm totally gonna, like, fake out Ivan and, like, be on Khan's side still. I think it's more of, like, I'm just gonna try to get as close as I can to the ship and do whatever I can to like ensure the best outcome for whoever I can, but it doesn't really matter to her like whether it's Ivan or Khan,
Yeah, I think her only concern there is just to get like, okay, Ivan's gonna try to take this ship. Maybe if I go along with it, I can figure out a way to get Mado on there. I think that was.
Yeah. And I think it definitely would be like a bonus though if she could get to kill Ivan because of Paolo. Like I think she was
Yeah.
kind of.
I mean,
again,
she
like
does.
you
She
said,
does
was
shoot him
already
with the
scheming.
phaser. So
Yeah.
She gave it her best shot.
She had
literally.
the phaser at this point. She could have shot him. I mean, yeah, you do have to worry about like Hassan's there too, and doesn't have enough juice to shoot twice. She said in the last episode it only has enough juice for 1 or 2 shots. So, but I think she was thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna get a seat on the ship. I'm gonna phaser this guy and then give the seat to Mado. So, but we also learned that Ivan was able to live eating the city eels. Like he takes like one of the babies from the mom. Like you hear him say like, "Oh, mama, I just want one little baby," and then like he eats it, and she's like, "That's so gross. You're ingesting low levels of eel toxin." And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's kind of like vodka, you know." So I guess this is what Khan and his people will live off of for years, and yeah, maybe that's part of why. I mean, they're all just like drunk off of
Right, there's a
bug
little
blood.
high you get from the same thing that makes your brain become susceptible, I guess.
But I don't know if that was like always in like people's like headcanon or something that's what they had to eat on Ceti Alpha 5, but that would explain why they kept them, in their bunker in the movie. They have like the little things there, the little tongs to grab the little so whenever you're hungry, you just walk by the eel
Oh
pit
God.
and you grab a little baby off of the mama and put it in your mouth and eat it.
Yeah, I think so. Joel in the audience asks, "What do the eels eat?" And I guess we don't get into that level of the biology of the planet.
Yeah, it's something that allowed them to still survive after the disaster. So I guess they eat something in the dirt. They don't need any vegetation.
Maybe
that could be, yeah,
something from the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, they may be like what are those things? My gosh, Ripper. What was in
The tardigrade?
A tardigrade. Yeah, those things. Like tougher than roaches. They can survive. I guess they eat moss. I think, but they can go for like years without eating and stuff. Like so. Who knows? Maybe the Ceti eels have something like that, and yeah, basically can get it from something from the Earth, from their planet.
Or maybe they are like scavenger animals and eating all of the dead Alborians in that cave that Stephen you thought
that's true.
is
Although
maybe what Ivan was going to eat.
they would go on to live for years after that, though, right? Because Khan still had him when Chekhov and Terrell show up, so something kept him going.
Yep.
Also though like maybe they're like, well, we're gonna make the Elborians last. We're not gonna just have a big feast. We're smart about it.
Ration the elves.
Jeez.
Yeah, I think it's just like a pure Ceti eel menu. So
Hey, has somebody done fan art yet of the Elborians or any of the others? I'd love to see that because that description of sort of like the silver skin, or is it silver skin and hair? That's something of like a special effect and look that I can imagine from both the 60s show and 80s era Trek and stuff. And I think it'd be fun to kind of imagine it the way it would have been, either in the 60s or maybe in the 70s, roughly when this would have been occurring, in that timeline. But yeah, it's got to be out there.
I always imagine Lee Pace as Legolas's dad.
Yeah,
That's who I think of as
serene and
Delmonda.
ethereal. Yeah,
Yeah.
They definitely had that elven vibe and sort of, yeah. They did Galadriel-y type things and in their psychic stuff.
did Lee Pace play Ronan the Accuser in Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's blue.
Yeah, I can see him as like Delmonda. Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
But then after that opening of, I guess, Ursula being recruited to Team Ivan, then we get the final moments before the Venture launches. Mado is getting Callie ready for departure. Marla had some of those tapes that talking about old Earth ships that Meadow puts on for Callie to calm her down, I guess, give her something to listen to. This is before things get too crazy. But Joachim tells Khan that all the nearby systems that they're going to go to, right now the plan is that the ship is going to be Joachim, Callie, Khan, and Kimura, one of the Elborian engineer. And Joachim's telling Khan all of the nearby systems with inhabitable planets, they're all Federation, and Khan is like, yeah, we have to stay away from those, can't go to them. I promise you, Kirk wanted us all to die. He probably ordered all Federation personnel to kill us on sight if any of us left this planet. And I found it entertaining here when Khan reveals, yeah, I often think about Kirk and what I would say or do to him if I ever saw him again. Because it's so, when you watch The Wrath of Khan, you can tell, Ricardo Montalban is playing it this guy is so thrilled and kind of giddy to give his villain speech to Kirk.
Yeah,
so
he's you have no idea how long I've practiced.
Yeah.
Do you think that every once in a while, Joachim or whatever, would walk into his quarters accidentally, and Khan would be midway through, from Hell's Heart? What can I help you with?
No, but I think that happens with Riker and Picard. I think Picard practices speeches in his ready room and stuff. But that's also when Joachim had mentioned something from Delmonda. Delmonda had taught Joachim that revenge is a waste of time. When someone commissions a bad act, that brings on its own punishment, or something like that. And Khan is never.
Who told you this?
Yeah, never mention Delmonda again. Forget anything he ever taught you. And so this comes back to bite Khan in the end, because later I'm thinking about Joachim kind of advises Khan to lean into the vengeance, and I'm I kind of wanted Khan to get there on his own. He didn't need Joachim to push him, but I'm Khan is so self-sabotaging that the guy who would have gave him some good supportive help, Khan actually sabotaged that guy to prevent him from being helpful and supportive for Khan in a positive way later. So he never got the support he needed. Instead, he got encouragement for revenge later.
Yeah.
Yeah, poor Joachim. He seems destined to throw out the more thoughtful ideas, don't go into the nebula, and stuff like that, only to get shut down by Khan. And I was thinking about this. I'm
he's the charge of the Light Brigade.
Right, but he ends up, he will back Khan's play. He will ultimately always back Khan's play. And psychologically it makes sense because, Khan was his dad's best friend, clearly became a surrogate father. Khan even calls him my son in this one again. And so that kind of becomes everything for him in his life, is sort of being able to, make his father happy.
There's eventually some followers outside demanding that Callie stays. So we want to guarantee that you're actually going to come back, Khan. And Erica and some of the other augments are. It sounded like it was a different group before Ivan showed up. Maybe it was Ivan orchestrated all of this, but they were I guess they wanted to take Callie hostage, kind of. That makes it sound more fucked up than I'm kind of sympathetic to these people, they wanting to have some guarantee that Khan would return.
Yeah,
but,
they weren't all kind of in that headspace. I guess Meadow had gotten to where she's whatever.
I mean, that's fair too. To just give up and just be checked out and defeated and. Mm-hmm. You're just waiting to die, basically.
And that'd be particularly rough on the younger ones, though.
Yeah.
That's a little life experience.
Yeah, so that would make sense, I guess, why Erica is more, proactive, and Meadow, the older, more jaded, cynical, more reserved person gave up. Or not Meadow, Ursula, sorry. Although Ursula didn't in the end. She found an opportunity and took it. But Ivan gives the speech about how Khan led them all into ruin, and basically, I guess he's still advocating to be new leader. He seems like such an asshole, though. Why would anyone, join up with him? When he's, he gets mad at Ursula, he's I did not give you permission to speak. It's I don't want to be on his team if he's going to, boss me around like that.
They were all eager to follow Khan before. They chanted
Yeah.
Khan and stuff. There's that Trumpian cult to them where there's a certain part of them that wants to be told what to do. It gives them simplified lives. And I think Ivan was the last vestige. You got to remember that, like, I guess, except for the younger ones, most of them literally, in what would, in their memory, would just be some years ago before the crash, they had fought alongside Khan. They had conquered nations and stuff like that. So, we didn't really see much side of it. But the fact that even there was people listening to that dude in the first episode that Ivan killed.
Hugo,
yeah. Suggests to me that there's a contingent of them that were always kind of really pretty warlike, that had really imprinted on the eugenics war era. And yeah, I guess, especially like if it's like Ivan and his crazy asshole kingship, or Khan leaves, never returns, and we starve to death, there's a certain appeal, I guess.
And I guess at this point, I don't know what Ivan's objective is other than he wants to have himself on the ship. But we get kind of a civil war in the caves before the one-on-one fight of Khan versus Ivan. Let's talk about like this other stuff that happens before we get to that final boss battle. But there's a moment on board the Venture where Kimura, Kali, Joachim, and Mado are just like there, I guess, like, doing like the final pre-flight countdown or whatever, and they hear like the chanting Ivan, Ivan, Ivan outside. So you got to think like, okay, that's kind of alarming. Doesn't sound like Khan is doing too great out there. But the deal is that the spaceship has to be opened from the inside. Right. Really messed up that Khan would have it designed that way, but I'm sure that was his idea. So that he could lock himself in there with his kid, and then he gets to decide who else gets to come in.
Yeah, I can imagine him like selling Delmonda's people on it. He's like, there's always the possibility that as we're preparing to take off, that some people in their desperation might try and get in, and just as a pure security reason, we need to have it so that they can't.
Or like the Seti eels can like open it and get on board.
like raptors in Jurassic Park.
They learned how to open spaceship hatches now.
Yeah.
I want to just real quick throw out a minor complaint that I had. They did this a few times. Occasionally there's a little bit of a tonal shift that I find, it's the kind of thing Marvel movies do where something serious happens and somebody makes a lighthearted joke, then afterwards to diffuse it. It kind of makes it feel like the movie doesn't quite have, when that happens, the courage of its convictions. It's not willing to stay in a sort of serious place. Mm-hmm. Needs to give you some goofy little thing. So my example here is I thought the opening sequence with Ursula and Ivan, the very opening of this, was very tense. And then she says that very kind of beautiful thing, if, wherever you are, I hope there's stars there. And then the next thing we hear is goofy little Kali going like, bye-bye chair, bye-bye funny shaped rock. And I was like, I suddenly, for a minute, kind of viewed her like Scrappy-Doo. Like, who let this kid in here? This is a serious adult trauma.
Interesting. That didn't stand out to me, but I can see that being an issue. But yeah, it's weird to think about this 5-year-old with the brain of a 10-year-old.
Oh yeah. It's kind of Dune territory.
And she's never left this cave. She's been in this cave her entire existence.
And it does seem like between Mado and even the way Khan treated her, kind of sheltered, literally sheltered, I guess, in the cave.
She's the only person on this planet who didn't have her food rationed. She actually got to eat like the full amount of calories every day.
That's right. Forgot about that. Yeah, it's not a big complaint, but I want to do my due diligence and not.
I can see that.
Show all nothing but praise.
What do y'all think when Khan gives the speech back to Ivan, where he talks about saying that he used to be a true believer in their augment supremacy, but now he sees that they're just these savages. What does he say? Playthings of fate, right? And all that really matters is Kali escaping the planet. So it's Yeah, I guess this is a bit more of, yeah, when Khan is on the noble track here. I guess this is when he's like escalating up to his big noble decision to trade seats with Delmonda.
Yeah. What was I'm trying to think. What was it that you said was him escalating it up there? Doing
Well,
what, Mothery?
I guess just initially Khan accepting that the limitations, I guess, of people like him and Ivan. When
Right.
he's saying that he used to think that these augments, they were kind of like the be all end all, like they were truly the superior beings, and now he's like, oh yeah, we actually, like, there's so much more evolution beyond us. We're actually quite terrible, but Callie can be the thing that I used to associate with. That's actually something that I can now associate with my daughter, and like that can be her fate since it can't be mine.
Definitely the kind of thing that he would never have thought before knowing Marla. And I think it's like that is like his last sort of really noble thing. It did strike me that when he tells Kali, he's like, "Oh, I've lied to you." He's like, "I've, and then he talks about that, but then he also says like, "I need to go and be with my people," and I'm like, well, which is the main reason you're staying? To be with your people, or because you realize there's no place for you in her better life?
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
That's the big thing. But I wonder if it was a little bit of his ego at the end, and where he's got to kind of be a little bit like, my people need me.
I mean, I think he's kind of like transitioning from like, I was going to go on the ship with you, but now like I've realized that's not a good idea. But the way I have to present that to the rest of the world is that my duty as the leader is to stay behind.
I think that's a good observation, Father. I think
and probably how he has to tell it to himself instead of telling himself the real truth that he does know if he'll dig a little deeper and think about it a little harder consciously. But the real truth is that, like, I know that I suck too much to be a part of my daughter's life, and I'm too big of a piece of shit to fix myself to be a part of her life. So I just need to remove myself.
What's kind of interesting is I can't think of too many people who that doesn't. It's not like a cliche in literature and things like that. That exact realization. I can only sort of think of one example of it. I'm sure there are many others, but is actually the original film version of Frankenstein, or maybe Bride of Frankenstein, when Frankenstein says, "We belong dead."
It's Bride of Frankenstein.
Bride of Frankenstein, yeah. A sort of recognition that there's something gone wrong.
Very nihilistic thing to say.
Yeah. His is particularly nihilistic. What a cool movie.
But the Alborians show up. They're the cavalry that come in. They telekinetically, I guess, keep the ship safe and secure its launch, staying in the cave that's going to blow up, knowing that they'll die. And
there are a lot of big visuals here. Were they to film this, animate it, draw it as a comic, whatever they would do, I could definitely see it being like
it would feel like a finale, though, like you
doing it as a comic. But yeah, there's a big fight with Ivan. There's Braveheart hordes of people attacking his ship, and the Alborians coming in, and got to be on their last legs, man. I know, like, a lot of them have died; they're half dead from starvation, and they're giving it their all.
Yeah, and this is like their final telekinetic act here. It sounds like that would have drained them, but if they somehow survived that, the cave explosion would have got them. Yeah. But Khan and Delmonda forgive each other.
Yeah, it was one of those points where I was like, maybe this has been a little too rehabilitating for Khan. I maybe needed him to be a little bit more cutthroat to the end. There's an interesting case to be made. His better angels were brought out by the proximity of his daughter, the intensity of the moment, and all of that. But he seemed quite sincere about it. Joanne in the comments says they should have kissed. There you go. Please, somebody get to that fanfic. Don't leave it lying on the floor. I don't know. What do you think, Taylor? Too much? Not enough? Like reasonable?
Yeah, I think it was okay. I think like Kali having her panic and screaming like help us so much was really hard to hear. And I really liked the Elborians like gathering together to like because they mentioned multiple times within the last couple episodes like how weak they are, and they haven't been able to like levitate things or really communicate as strongly together as a group. And so yeah, like you said, like it's kind of like their final act, you know, this like final group effort to like protect the ship and make sure at least someone gets off the planet. And of course they all love Kali because she's like the most innocent of them, you know.
Right. She's bonded with them and is probably closest in sort of her wholesomeness and her kind of qualities to them.
And she's their salvation just as much as Khan's. Because they're like, man, like, this is our fault. Like, we came to the system and fucked up this planet. We're doing everything we can to get, like, the one decent person out of the situation off-world with Kali. I don't know, maybe I'm throwing, like, Paulo under... Oh, he was a bully to Joachim. Yeah, he's like, everyone in here sucks. All these people suck.
But
listen, he was a teenager. He was a teenager, man.
But whenever Ivan basically starts saying, like, kill them all, like, and he realizes that the Alborians are telekinetically protecting the ship, and Ivan says, kill them all, that made me cry, because you're just thinking about them getting picked off, like, one by one, like, in this group, and they're all so weak already, and, like, they're already giving, like, their best effort to, like, this, and they don't really, like, add that into the sound, but, like, I'm sure that they picked off quite a few of them. You know,
if they were to dramatize this in some visual media, whether it was like film or comic or something like that, I suspect that they would somewhat emphasize some of that stuff. You know, it is the visual gravity of all of these deaths and sacrifices. There is something to be said for not showing it, and then maybe why it works in the audio medium is because you do want to keep this sort of centered on Khan. And if their sacrifices are too front and center, you're kind of like, oh, this is the story of the Elborians.
But I think it's a TV. I mean, it's not a TV show; it's an audio drop. But it's like it would if it had been like a Paramount Plus miniseries. It'd be like, yeah, you have like your main character, but you have your supporting characters, and like people will tune in to be like, well, what's Paulo doing? What's Ursula doing this week? You know, I feel like, and I think in this audio drama, these supporting characters were realized that more than I kind of expected going in for some reason. So
definitely, I thought Paulo was he went from bully to kind of interesting tech guy who was like stealing stuff from MacGyver's thing, to one of the few people who was forward thinking, to somebody who would actually challenge Khan, and multiple times kind of stood up to him. He was kind of the route that I think somebody like Joachim could have gone if he wasn't so desperate for a father figure. And like this is some really interesting stuff in there. Like, there was like you, Father, I felt like maybe something. It didn't quite this last episode have that oomph to be quite a city on the edge of forever for me, but I do feel like the craftsmanship, the depth of character, the thematics that resonated and circled back around to things introduced in the first episode was really very well done. Like, I mean, like the craft level in this is extremely high. I noticed a lot of people in the audience, multiple people even before we started the show, saying they wanted more of these audio dramas, and I'm like, it was really such an impressive overall start that I would agree to that.
Hell, it just occurred to me, we could always make our own as fans. Like, we could hire our own voice actors and sound effects and all of that.
I'll play the role of Old Man Sulu.
Yeah. Maybe if I'm too pissed off at Paramount to cover new episodes of new shows, we'll just make our own shows. We'll just be like, this is our version of Starfleet Academy.
Listen.
Nice.
Not against it.
To be continued, as we were saying. But what else happens here? Ursula, she orders Erica to take the survivors up to the surface and pulls the phaser out on Ivan. I guess when he's going murder crazy and all the Alborias, and he's like, Delmonda, come face me, and then Ursula phasers him. They don't know if he's stunned or killed. Turns out he's stunned, but
she got a good line in there. She got her cool line. That's for Paolo, you son of a bitch, or
Yep.
you sick son of a bitch, something like that. Good stuff. Good stuff. She, I think probably. I think she would be in this version, but also in any visual version. I think she would be kind of a fan favorite character.
Yeah, I'm kind of like Jill. I was disappointed in the opening as well, but then here when I was always kind of hoping because she was a character. She's mean to Marla, but then she learns to like her. But then like she kind of wants to betray Khan for Ivan a few episodes ago, and so you never knew which way she was gonna go. And then here I was happy. I was surprised how happy I was that she came through.
Yeah.
I was so glad that she got to phaser Ivan first.
Hell
Like she
yeah.
got to take the first punch, which was really satisfying.
Knock out some of his HP in the video game before the fight with Khan.
Right, but then when he gets back up, it's that thing where the bar goes through. Whoop, 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 whoop.
Oh yeah, where it grows and you're
You're
like,
like,
oh,
what?
shit.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh right, he's got boss shit. By the way, I always kind of like it. Like to me, I always remember it most from, I guess, like maybe Trek 3, when phasers hit somebody and it like they get knocked physically like 10 feet. I feel like when she tagged Ivan, she sent that dude flying.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, because it's like the last burst out of the
Yeah.
phaser batteries, so like, it comes out a little
He's
rough
such
like
a
that.
brute. He was probably wearing some kind of hard ass shell of shells
A
of
Seti eel shell.
Yeah, the mother
shift armor and shit.
the mother Seti Ills are kind of like armor plated, so he just took them
yeah,
apart
for
and
real.
made a suit.
Something like that.
So this kind of gives Khan a moment to breathe, though, with Ivan stunned, and get back on the ship, tell Joachim to stay behind and be the new leader, and this is when Mado is continuing to play the Marla tapes for Kali, but this is we get the Cortez stuff Taylor was mentioning, talking about his accomplishments were really impressive, but if you look at the actual history, he was a brutal, self-serving coward, and Marla is stressing the importance of embracing the truth even when inconvenient, which will I guess become a lesson for Callie in this episode.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You're talking about the adult Callie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Later in the episode.
Or I guess I
AKA
should refer
Dr.
to her
Lear.
as Lear.
Yeah,
but
we've known the whole season as Dr. Lear, but yes, Callie.
But is this what gives Khan that final push to stay behind? Because he was like strapped up in the ship at this point, and then he hears Marla on the recordings.
It's one last call to her from beyond the grave.
Yeah, it's like he's like I'm going to be more than a Cortez for Marla. I can be more than a Hernan Cortez, at least for this moment, at least for today.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty dramatic idea. Good, honestly, big dramatic thing to happen at the ending. I talked about, I was like, whatever they were going to do in this episode, I knew there'd be some twists and turns, and we kind of had broadly figured things out in a way that I think happened at a good pace. I don't think they blew all their secrets early on to the point where I was like, yeah, it all happened like we expected. I think that sort of dramatic turn from Khan is the kind of satisfying thing that sometimes happens in a climactic scene. Is you let characters have these big moments where they're like, Luke, you've switched off your targeting computer. It's that moment. He made a dramatic call. Everything was heightened emotion there. So
yeah, I thought it was actually a little reminiscent for me was like Spock that knocked out McCoy before he went into the core or whatever.
Oh yeah,
and like Khan like locks Kali into her seat and then leaves. Like he's like, you're stuck here, you know what I mean? And he gives her his little goodbye thing and then leaves. Like it's not an exact parallel, but it did make me think of that.
Yeah, well, I guess like Spock is overhearing. He's watching Kirk talking to David, I guess, in Wrath of Khan, or somebody, or is it Sulu who says we're not going to make it? Are we? Or is that Kirk? And then David.
Kirk asks David. Kirk like looks at David. And he's like, "We're not going to make it, are we?" And David's just like, "Yeah, no way in hell."
Nope. And then you just see Spock quietly taking action.
Mm-hmm.
One of the great scenes, I think, in cinema history. And yeah, I think there is a little something like that, though. Khan saw something, and he was like, "This is when when I live up to my wife."
I love the line that he tells Delmonda when he tells him, "Go take my seat, get her out of here, never ever come back, just leave all of us behind." And then he says, "Some of us are not meant to see paradise. Some of us will never know the face of eternity."
Yeah,
And I like that because that's it's like the closest he ever gets to humility, but it's like yeah, like I just have to accept I'm a small cog in a bigger machine, and I will never get to comprehend the big picture, but that's okay. Like it's not about me.
The massive ego that we were seeing from Ivan has at least for this moment fled Khan.
Because he has something else to live for now with a kid. I see that as, I don't know, it's something that I think about a lot just at the point I'm at in my life, I guess. But going into my 40s with like no kids, and then like a lot of people, in my life around like the same age who like they do have like families and stuff. And I really like the life I live without kids. But I have noticed that, oh yeah, when you have kids, that does really change your priorities. Like the survival of this other person, not just their survival, but them prospering becomes so much more important than anything in your life and in your existence. And as long as you're doing enough, like you can get so much fulfillment in life just knowing that as long as I'm facilitating this other person who's going to exist beyond me, like that's a lot of people find fulfillment through that, and I guess
sure.
Khan gets a moment of that here.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is I talked about like some questions, the internal struggle I have to go through as a Star Trek fan, and does this feel like it fits within what I know of Khan just through Wrath of Khan and Space Seed? Do I buy it, or does it kind of in the end, do I kind of in my head, is it fanficky? And good, but its own thing. And Khan being able to like just like have a kid that changed his life, that's a big change. That's a big thing. Delmonda entering his life, Marla leading him to, at least for a time, become a better person, all those things. What I do think was very clever for the writers of the show is that they really did kind of tie it all together. Khan saying "do not report us" and all that stuff, that that fits within Trek canon. We know that basically people were not coming back to this place. It all they exonerated Kirk in the previous episode. They're like, yeah, there's no way they could have known that what would happen to SETI Alpha 6 was going to happen. There's a lot of things they tied up really quite carefully. And again, I feel like that's, my gut says that was David Mack, because that's sort of a novelist's attention to detail and Trek lore and stuff like that. But of course, I don't know that.
Dave, Kirsten Beyer has written a lot of Trek novels too, though.
Oh, that's right. I honestly had forgotten that. I only dabble in Trek novels in the last 10, 20 years. I did most of my Trekker reading in the 80s, 90s.
But I think David Mack has written a lot more. I think Peter David's written the most out of anybody.
I believe when we talked to him, he did say he was number 2 on the list,
and Mack is number 2. So and and he said he's never going to catch up to Peter David because like they don't even publish that many books. Like, if he wrote like all 3 or 4 books they put out every year, it would still take him like
right
decades to catch up. So, but number 2 is still pretty impressive.
Cake is Eternal asks an interesting question. Would Khan have already had kids on Earth by this time?
Yeah,
They did mention all that stuff.
He's had many kids, but he was never in love with any of the moms, though. They said Marla's the first time he opened his heart to love. And Khan talked to Joaquin about that early on, too.
Right. I guess that was the pathway we presume to La'an.
Yes. Yeah, her great 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 grandmammy got it on
Yeah.
with Khan. Um,
Yeah, and it seems like after that many removals, you could remove the Noonien Singh, especially if
it's
it's
really
like
weird. It's like at,
non-consensual.
after World War II, every
Consensual.
single person named Hitler got together and said like, yeah, we're changing our last names. So,
Yeah.
kind of weird, but uh, anywho, so in the bunker on the surface, Erica, she was
Oh,
sent to like.
wait. Sorry, I think we skipped the boss fight with Ivan and Khan.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention like Erica led all the other people out of the cave,
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
and then Khan gets like I guess like his final confrontation with I guess the only people still in here at this point are the Alborians are trying to help I don't know, stabilize the ship or keep Ivan away from it, or maybe he has like some other followers. It is, I guess, kind of hard to follow the specifics of the action scene when we get in like this big battle, but it's more about the conflict between Khan and Ivan, and that's all through the dialogue.
It's true.
But yeah, when Ivan gets up from the being stunned by the phaser, and I guess Khan takes Joachim's sword. Joachim was still behind, so yeah. So Khan tells Joachim, "Okay, go up there with Erica, but give me this badass sword. I need it to fight Ivan with." But like even during that fight, it sounds like Khan had the upper hand the entire time, and he was kind of as they were fighting, he's kind of trying to reason with Ivan.
Yeah, Ivan was really wanted to know. He's like, "Hey, when you let me live before, was that because you were being merciful?" He's like, "Were you really that lame?" And what does Khan say? Did he say he did it to hurt him or something like that? Like,
but he's
kind of like how he talked about Kirk. Would later talk about Kirk, for sure.
And we talked about that, I guess, 2 weeks ago in episode 7. But when they fought then, Ivan wanted Khan to kill him. He's, it's basically Ivan's like, if you can't be the Khan I want you to be, then I either need you to kill me or I need to like get away from this planet. Like, because Ivan, it seems like he can't defeat Khan. I guess Khan really is superior combatant level strength. Because like whenever they fight, Khan always bests him, and even here, it's almost Ivan's kind of insulted. He's like, what are you teasing with me? Like, previously when they fought, he's like, just go ahead and finish me off, and we kind of get some of that here, I think.
Didn't Khan say during that initial conflict with Ivan? Didn't he say indicate that he was going to let him live so that Delmondo would think he's merciful?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which that was back when Khan was still always being an asshole, I guess.
Yeah.
Or I guess there is a point in here. I take that back. I guess there is a point in here where Ivan does get the upper hand on Khan, and he tells him, "I want mine to be the last face you see."
Oh, so, yeah.
Again,
true.
I think Ivan was always in love with Khan.
Yeah. It does.
It sounds like something one lover would say to another. I want mine to be the last face you see. So, yeah. Eventually,
you can
Khan
never forgive him that somebody else got between them.
Khan is forced to kill Ivan, and but yeah, I mean, this is like the good Khan. It's like I kind of picture him here. It's like in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It's the part when his heart grows 10 times the size or whatever, and he gives all the gifts back to the Whoville people. And
all the city eels down in Eelville.
But yeah, it's like this is like the good Khan. Like he would have spared Ivan, but he had to kill him. The good Khan doesn't last, but like Tuvok points out, like maybe it could have. We'll never know, I guess. But yeah, now the bunker on the surface. Thanks for keeping us on track, Taylor. But when Khan does make it back, the plan is, okay, we got the ship launched. I'm gonna go up to the surface. I'm gonna get on the radio and hail them, make sure that they got off safe. And he gets up there, and Erica saw an explosion when the ship reached the clouds, and they're not responding on the radio. So Khan freaks out, smashes the radio, and decides to backslide on all that development he just experienced, and his heart shrank back down 10 sizes back down.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like, this Khan would not, he would, like, if they had, like, that fight, if Ivan got up from being stunned, like, an hour later, Khan would not be trying to spare him. He would have been like, oh, I have someone to, like, an outlet for all of my rage right now.
Yeah, he would be like, you picked a bad day to return, Ivan.
Yeah.
Jill in the comments earlier was talking about how, like, Khan destroying the radio in anger, and, you know, like, that trope in sort of movies. You know, I can think of any number of times it happens. Anybody seen Goodfellas? You know, when Robert De Niro finds out that Joe Pesci got whacked, his close buddy, and he tears up and he smashes the phone in the phone booth.
Even as recent as, like, Kylo Ren, like, that was ridiculous in my opinion.
Swinging that thing
overdone.
But it is to answer the question. Jill was like, "Do people really do that?" And I can tell you, as someone who represses their anger, that yes, I randomly. I remember one time I smashed a spatula apart in, like, this kind of, like, moment of anger, not with anybody around. It was like one of these just kind of things came to a head, and I just smashed it. So people do it. It's not a common occurrence, but that's definitely a thing that people do.
Yeah, I'm envious of a life lived where that would seem like is that like an actual thing that people do? Like, I feel the desire to do that like 12 times a day, I think, but that's,
you know, I feel like anybody who plays video games and had that controller in their hand and thought sometime about, like, just smashing it to pieces. There are definitely those games that will do that.
Yeah. But anything else before we talk about the Tuvok and Lear stuff set in the present, when they, I guess, flash forward? But before we get to that,
you know, I want to mention two things that I just jotted down in my notes. One is a kind of just a weird observation. It's something from one of Marla's recordings. It's just a weird turn of phrase. She said something like, "It was once believed that, like, civil life or civilization emerged from the Fertile Crescent." And I'm like, I think that is still the current science and anthropology. And I was like, so yeah, that is. What do you mean once believed? I wondered if it was a Star Trek specific reference, like, oh, well, because they're talking about the progenitors or something. But
no, she wouldn't have known about them. But you're right, that is unusual phrasing. I guess it just meaning that, like, oh, there was civilization on other planets before there was civilization on Earth. So we didn't really invent that.
Maybe so, although I got the impression she was basically talking about human history, not galactic history.
Because, I mean, they still call Zefram Cochrane the inventor of warp drive, and it's like, no, I'm pretty sure, like, those Vulcan dudes who showed up on Earth had it for years before Cochrane, so he didn't invent jack shit, you know?
Sometimes it just goes with the, you know, it's an accepted thing that we're egocentric, we're anthrocentric, we're talking about ourselves. The other thing is there was I think this was from. Right, it was from when Khan was fighting Ivan. There was some nice writing in there where he was telling Ivan, like, even if you die, like, I win because Kali is he says, she is my victory incarnate. And I thought that was a really nice bit of dialogue, a cool way to think about it. You know, that she had become everything, you know, saving her was everything. It was through her, the best of him would live on, the best of Marla would live on, and the
best of the Elborians.
Right, that's true. She had connected to all of those people. If they were to do follow-up audio plays, novels, whatever, with that character, I think she's pretty interesting. I like how she bucks authority and talks shit to Sulu and Tuvok and all that. So I would be interested to find out more about her character if they wanted to.
Having a historian, and we're technically in the Lost Era. We're at the very beginning of it. But what Trek fans call the Lost Era, in between Star Trek 6 and Star Trek The Next Generation, there's an 80-year gap where Section 31 takes place, but nothing else really ever happens there that we know about. It would be cool to, I guess, follow this historian running around in that era.
Yeah, for sure. I'm love to see her. You know, Father, we talked about the egotistical old men who sometimes get onto starships, and Picard or Kirk or whoever has to run errands for them and accept whatever their crazy requests are. But it would, I wouldn't mind seeing sort of almost that perspective from a sort of more young and vibrant historian. Traveling around the galaxy, maybe occasionally on different ships and things like that, and with the unusual life experience she has, some more, maybe a follow-up with the Elborians, find out what's going on in their world, what happened after they forced Delmonda out and all that stuff. Like, these are not necessary stories, but could you tell good stories with it? I think so.
What would else be an interesting possibility is if the beta canon books, novels, video games, any of that stuff decide to play with any of the things established here in the audio drama. If the shows and movies never touch it, those other mediums might.
Yeah. David Mack, Kirsten Beyer, there's books out there. Would maybe be a way to enjoy Trek without the Paramount aegis, but I guess everything still goes through them.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Taylor, any thoughts on SETI Alpha 5 before we flash forward to Tuvok and Lear?
No, we can go forward.
Dave, did you have something else? I think you said you had two
no,
things.
those were the two things. One was the thing about the Fertile Crescent. I just thought it was unusual to say they once believed that. I was like, what do you mean? I want to know what the answer is to that. Maybe I'll message David Mack. Post
Joel also mentioned the super smart Earth dinos weren't known about either. Yeah, there was that Voyager episode about the dinosaur people.
Yeah, stuff like that is what made me think is like, well, maybe that was a little bit of reference to Trek continuity. But I was like, I just don't want to find out that, like one of the writers on this show was like, well, we all know that God created man, like that there's some, that they've got their nice firm roots in science. I always want that.
Well, when they flash forward to the present, we had in the last episode left off with Lear beaming down to the planet and then Tuvok going after her. And so Lear is in the bunker on SETI Alpha 5 feeling defeated when Tuvok asks if she found what she was looking for. And she said, no, but I'm out of time. And, we can figure out what she was looking for. Now she was wondering, like, oh, how come in the Wrath of Khan he didn't come find me? Everyone says he was going on this revenge mission against Kirk? That's not the guy I knew for the first 5 years of my life. That guy would have come after me. So why didn't he? But Tuvok shows Lear the log entry of Khan quoting Yeats again, the slouching towards Bethlehem poem, the second birth, and.
I wasn't 100% clear on how it was that Tuvok had heard one audio recording that she hadn't gotten to. Like, I wasn't quite clear why.
It's kind of lame, but for the explanation, but they do explain it. Because in the previous episode, or it might have been 2 episodes ago, but he had the computer arrange everything in the right order, and he suggested that to her early on, and she was like, I don't want the computer to do it. I want to go through all this myself. So it's a little weird because it's like, oh, like Tuvok was using like the AI assist and Lear wasn't. Uh,
Right. She's like, I want the personal touch. And he's
yeah,
like, well, if you had used the AI assist, you would have gotten to the last one. And the last one is kind of notable.
yeah. But we hear Khan. We hear that he had wandered aimlessly with Joachim by his side, and Joachim tells him that like, don't give up. You still have so much to live for. And you can imagine like Joachim's kind of like desperate to like. I love this guy. I got to get him his mojo back. I got to get him to come to his senses. And Joachim tells him, you can still live for revenge. You still hate Kirk. It's possible. We can always hope one day. So that's like the one thing that kept Khan alive.
How Khan got his groove back.
Yeah, basically. But this is something that kind of bothered me the first time I was listening, because I don't want like the Wrath of Khan to be Joachim's fault. It should all be Khan's. But then I'm like, oh, Khan sabotaged Joachim from being able to be like the supportive friend later. So it's like it still is Khan's fault, kind of. It's like from like a fifth dimensional self-saboteuring kind of way.
Yeah, it is sort of true. I want to go and listen to the ending again. Like, a lot happens here. I don't know if I told you, but I accidentally, in the previous episode, stopped listening about 5 minutes too early. When Ivan returns,
Yeah.
they start to play some of their dramatic music, and I guess I was listening while I was in the car, and I had looked down at the timestamp, and I was like, oh, I think that's the end, and the rest is just their ads and stuff, and credits. And so I had actually missed it, and I was like, wow, a lot happens in that span. Like, Kirk gets exonerated, and she beams down to the planet, and I was trying to think. There was and Tuvok, like, that's when he ran the scan looking for the Elborian escape ship and stuff like that. That was just like in 5 minutes, and there's a lot that happens in this one. So I kind of want to revisit just these end scenes that you're talking about.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff in there. Like, Khan is, he's really ready for a fight. He's saying like, I'm ready for whatever beast this universe is going to send my way next. I'm ready to take it on, and I hope that it's Kirk.
Yeah. He, essentially, when the pieces are put in the place that they sort of need to be, this is the Khan who's ready to cut a motherfucker.
But it's because, and I guess Lear didn't know this, but it's because Tuvok's figured out Erica actually saw a fuel pod explode, and then Lear has, I guess, like the other part of it. She's like, oh yeah, that did happen, but it knocked out our comm system, and they kind of go back and forth. They both have some reveals here at the end, but so what basically happened was the fuel pod exploded. Erica thought the ship blew up, but all it really did, I guess, was temporarily disable their communication on the ship. So when they didn't pick up the phone, Khan freaked out thinking they were dead, broke the radio. When the ship finally repaired their communications, Khan never picked up the phone because he broke his radio, so they just assumed they were all dead.
Yeah.
And, but what I thought was really cool here is this kind of like Tuvok's take on Khan, and like Tuvok talking about how
the best of us would have been driven to that. Could have been driven to that.
Yeah, how like he did have like that moment of growth, and then it was like immediately followed by tragedy.
What was interesting, I remember Dr. Lear, Cully, says something like, when he's like, any of us could have broken down, and she kind of almost refutes, then she's like devil's advocating against Khan for the moment there, and I forget exactly why. Was she saying, was that when she was like, he never learns, why didn't he ever learn?
He shouldn't have like fell in love, and he shouldn't have tried to go into the whole
she was like, he would have done better, right, if he had been like the ruthless Khan that he began as.
Yeah, she's basically like throwing her mom under the bus. She was like, yeah, if Khan had just like never opened himself up to love and just stayed like that strong Khan that Ivan wanted, then he would have made better choices, and he would have survived.
Right. And it's funny, she finds out that the love of her is kind of what doomed her dad, and so suddenly in this moment, she's like, love is the worst fucking thing there is. But she's like, he could have lived. I don't care about me. he could have lived if he had just been more heartless.
But
It's interesting psychological thing.
But Tuvok kind of argues against that interestingly when he says like as far as I can tell, listening to these logs, I think he did behave exactly like that terrible asshole man he always was in history. And the only thing that he did that was different for him, it wasn't so much that he fell in love with your mom, but that inspired him to be a better man for just for one moment on one day. And, in doing that, that got you here. And I guess that was like when he revealed to Lear that he knew she was Callie.
I like that Tuvok, ends up in a place of, I think, kind of offering some wisdom here and some empathy. And, it felt very in character for him, that he, presents really, it can be presented as very factual, very, very aloof Vulcan, but that in the end that he is a guy who sort of will value doing the right thing over following the letter of the law.
He's also a big fan of mystery. Like, he wants to solve things. Like, I think this is something that, I think he's just an ensign in this, and I don't know, what he's specializing in, but we know him as, the security officer on Voyager. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, kind of something to think about. This might have been, a catalyst to be oh, I really enjoyed, figuring out this mystery and chasing this lady around and getting off the ship.
I was going to use that as a Gorn egg, or that's kind of the only one I have, but the Easter eggs and jokes and continuity connections that we like to bring up. But yeah, this is kind of the origin of what I call Detective Tuvok. He likes to do the Columbo thing at the end and be okay, I'm going to explain all of the mysteries right now in a very dramatic scene, well acted by Tim Russ.
The other thing that kind of has been bothering me the whole series, and I believe Cake brought it up in the comments actually a few minutes ago, but that we're kind of sitting over Ceti Alpha 5 on the spaceship, and we kind of Lear went down to the surface in the last episode, and this whole time I've been what is she looking for? What else does she want to see? And I feel we don't even get that conclusion in this finale. There's
what she go down there for?
I'm looking for this. I'm looking for this. And the only thing that I can rationalize and imagine is that it's kind of when a kid goes missing and you leave your light on the front porch, and it's well, they'll always be able to come home, and for her Ceti Alpha 5 is her home, and maybe she's just looking for that light, I guess, and
a connection, or
she's there's got to be something more. She's still, I feel she just feels empty, there's still a missing piece, and
it's because you can't find. You can't look into the past and find a perfect explanation, something that'll satisfy everything that you want, I think. And so, what were you going to say, Fathering?
Well, she was just like really defeated. Like she gives up. Like she tells Tuvok, like, I give up, and then she's like, y'all can leave me here, basically. Like she just wanted to stay behind. Like
I think she has a lot of survivor's guilt too, of like, oh,
definitely.
well, I left the planet, and now I should die here, just like everyone else died here or could have died here.
The more I think about it, the more I want to see her story continue in some way.
And something that I noticed in the first episode when they go to the bunker for the first time in episode 1, it's Lear and Tuvok beaming down here, and when she finds some of the logs in the bunker, she actually says, like, aha, exactly where she said it would be. And the first time you hear that, I think we all just assumed, like, oh, this is something Marla said in one of the recordings that Dr. Lear has mysteriously received. It said, like, go look in, like, this one part of the bunker, you'll find more recordings. And that's why she was like, oh, it's exactly where she said it would be. But now, listening back, is like, oh, Mado told her, like, there's going to be more recordings from your mom and from, right? I guess she wouldn't have known about the ones that, like, Khan continued on
That's
later,
true.
But she would have known. Oh yeah, we had like an archive of those. So
did we learn that Mado did die at some
Mado
point.
died Lear's sophomore year of university and left her some of the recordings. She had destroyed the ones that she had already had as a kid because she didn't want any, she's like, we gotta, hide your identity. Here, you get like your new Shakespeare name, blah, blah, blah. But then when she died, she left some additional recordings that I guess Lear didn't know existed.
Oh,
And that's-
I understood that differently. I thought that Mado had like confiscated them and told Kali that she had destroyed them, but she was actually secretly keeping them.
That makes more sense. Okay, I guess that's what it was then. Taylor understood it. I didn't, but
I mean, I could be wrong, but that's what I understood.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, that's why she mentions both, that she told her they were destroyed and then like she gave them to her. She left them to her when she died. But yeah, like everyone that this poor girl, like, as soon as they left the planet, they think everyone behind died. And then Kimura and Delmonda, like they can't survive, like the death of the Pandem. Like, and she feels that too. Like this 5-year-old girl with a 10-year-old brain who like, your entire life, okay, like your mom died so that you could be born. And then, like, all these people on this planet are just left behind to die. And then the 2 people responsible for the spaceship die. And then your surrogate mom who raises you dies when you're in college.
Yeah.
Tragic.
There's a lot going on in there. But you know what? I assume she was, like, parents die. She was raised, I think, with love by Mado, right?
Yeah.
That she had a good parent in there. There was a time when Khan was good to her, like as much as he could in those 5 years, and Delmonda was too. So there is like love in her life, and you could see how she was snappish, but ended up with a sort of mutual respect for Tuvok. I don't know if she ever quite reconciled things with Sulu. He seemed a little more antagonistic, which I kind of like. I'm okay. It's okay if people don't quite get along.
I like the arc with Tuvok though, and like
it was
how,
great.
He gives her the solace that she was seeking. Like she basically was like, "Oh, I need to exonerate my dad. I know there's no way he's like this evil dictator tyrant." Asshole terrorist that y'all all make him out to be. If I can dig through these logs, I can probably find proof. And then she's like, oh, I guess he did suck after all. But like the way that like Tuvok, has this conversation with her, kind of talks about things with her, like she gets to she's able to make peace with all of that. But because she learns, oh, the reason why he didn't, come after me on the Reliant is because like he didn't know that I was still alive. Like she didn't figure out that part about the fuel pod. Detective Tuvok had to figure that out and tell her, because she's also thinking like, my
famous scene in Fresh Prince, the why don't you love me, man, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what she was going through. That's Will Smith, trying to figure out why somebody. Why somebody that's supposed to, by all rights, love you didn't come looking for you and all that. So that was her moment.
Yeah, because she's like hanging out in this bunker on Ceti Alpha 5 thinking like, I guess it's true. I guess my dad really did suck. I guess he is this insane madman that all of history will hate forever. And I mean, like, I don't know, like he largely still is, but at least he still saved his daughter though.
Yeah.
Like,
and for like the right reasons, and recognized that he was a piece of shit.
Yeah, and I guess like the final dialogue we hear in this is Lear and Khan, both of their voices together, like the adult Dr. Lear and her deceased father. We hear both their voices reciting some of the Kubla Khan Coleridge poem, Marla's favorite poem. So she, it's kind of like her voice is in there too. But yeah, I mean that's like when it really hit me that like, oh yeah, like this character Callie or Rosalind Lear, or whatever you want to call her, like Marla did kind of get what she wanted as far as like when she died, when she like was like, okay, like take my brain off of life support and let me go brain dead so that I can live long enough for my kid to be born. But she said like, I hope that Callie can see the stars someday, and I guess her sacrifice was worth it in the end. But I don't know either of y'all have any more thoughts or final thoughts? I have some more things, but I'll let y'all.
Well, I don't think I have like anything else big to say, but I do want to reiterate something we've talked about before. Is just the conversations we've been having through this and the whole thing, which I've really enjoyed. I loved guesting in on this. Speaks to a high level of writing that they had going on, and really kind of what I want some more of from Trek is that sort of thoughtfulness and depth and themes. Those sort of themes I want to be able to really wrestle with that kind of stuff the way we have with this, and think about it like, we were finding these scenes and we're like, oh well, let's look at it from this perspective. Well, this is kind of different. Oh well, this just shed light on this. What an interesting new way to look at it now. So I want to again just kind of give it up for the writers from Nicholas Meyer, Kirsten Beyer, and David Mack. I don't know if there was any. I think that's all the big people involved.
Mm-hmm.
But like that, I feel like despite some qualms I have with it not quite feeling like it fits in the setting that I at least as imagined for Khan, which was basically nothing but living in a horrible desert, icy desert, I guess. But like they really came through on the writing on the kind of a next level. So
yeah, well, it's like Taylor said, like when all you have is dialogue, it has to be well written. It has to be a good story. That's all it is. Ain't no one listening to Star Trek Con for the visuals.
Right. Taylor,
I
do
can
you have
definitely
anything you
imagine. I can imagine Naveen Andrews so easily in every scene that he voices for this. Like
for sure,
amazing. Like you can really. He's such a great actor, and just with his voice alone,
It'd be cool to see him, like, even if they had just done this kind of for promotional shots, like with his hair pulled back in a ponytail, kind of like Khan had in Space Seed.
Oh yeah,
and with like maybe the red jumpsuit, but maybe slightly tweaked for down below. Eventually everything ends up bare chested and sleeveless in by Wrath of Khan. Like they could have lost the sleeves on the red jumpsuit or adorned it with some of the stuff that he had. That would have been cool. If nothing else, people get to that fan art on this one. I think I'd enjoy it just for creativity's sake.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're not gonna have time for subspace transmissions or there's not really any like Gorn eggs for this episode, but like I do have like some more thoughts I want to get out, but just to end things on with Star Trek Con. But before I say that, I just want to remind people that next week Taylor and I are planning to do a backtracking retrospective on Space Seed, and then the week after that we're doing the Wrath of Khan revisited show, and people need
all those things recontextualized in the
yes.
wake of Star Trek Con.
Very much. So make sure that you are subscribed for that. But my final thoughts I want to get on the record here about like the ending of this audio drama and like the reveals from Lear and Tuvok and the way that things wrapped up with the Venture and the ship launch and all of that stuff. But this blew my mind when I thought of this. But Khan does the same thing with the Venture that he later does with the Genesis device in the Wrath of Khan. He thinks that Callie's ship blew up, and he gets mad and is all, defeated and breaking his radio and all that. But in the Wrath of Khan, he activates the Genesis device, thinking, okay, this is going to blow up the Reliant, but it's also going to blow up the Enterprise. Their warp drive is disabled. It'll kill all of them. It'll kill that bastard Kirk. He turns on that Genesis device thinking that he has won. And, he's happy. He's like victorious when he dies. The closest thing he can get to feeling happy at that point. But he has like that bloody grin on his face. He's like, I spit my last breath at thee and all of that. And so he, in the Wrath of Khan, he never sees the Enterprise go to warp, and he dies thinking he won. Mm-hmm. And
this is a guy who's lived a life of delusion.
Yeah, when he wins here in the audio drama, he thinks he lost. So
yeah, that's a pretty cool observation. I do like that.
And this episode is called Eternity's Face. And, that to me, like, that suggests perspective to see for eternity to even have a face. suggests something has to perceive it. To faces are things that like you look at, that you see, like you look at and you associate an identity to it. So to see eternity's face, you have to have a broad perspective to be able to take that in. And Khan talks about his and Ivan's inabilities. The show has pointed out the limits of his imagination, and now it also seems to be pointing out the limits of his perspective. And I think when you marry those two things together, perspective and imagination, is that not the formula for empathy? You have to be able to observe and then also to think and imagine about.
You have to, at a very simple level, at least put yourself in the shoes of somebody else.
Yeah. Well,
that's the basics.
Especially if you have perspective and imagination, and then you throw in concern for the greater good. Where there was an episode called "The Good of All," right? So, all like things that this show has been talking about. But I think like it really boils down to Khan's lack of empathy is what defeats him. Mm-hmm. The thing that Del Mondo was all about, the thing that was like Del Mondo's strength, or kind of like his singular characteristic almost. So
something else that Eternity's face like keeps popping up in my head is the line in Les Mis at the very end. They sing it over and over. It's like, to love another person is to see the face of God, which is kind of a similar theme as Eternity's face. You're kind of like thinking of like this larger non-corporeal thing potentially having a face, like eternity. And it kind of is a similar theme too, where you're talking about learning empathy and like putting yourself in someone's shoes. And like, because that's kind of the whole theme of Les Mis, is this person who's been like traumatized and always gets the short end of the stick and is destined to fail over and over, and then finally like has a little bit of hope when he loves the child, which is like he becomes a father. And so it's kind of a similar theme too. But I couldn't stop thinking of Eternity's face and that kind of mirroring with Les Mis for me.
Yeah, that's some really insightful thoughts from y'all. I really like that. And I think it's interesting. I like that Khan seems like someone who, through his, maybe through who he was, but also how he was raised to be a combatant and all of that stuff, has little to no empathy much of the time. Although, you could argue that like his connection to his people is all sort of self-serving and is about preserving his status and stuff. But there's no doubt, as presented here, he did have empathy and love for his daughter, and so he didn't think he could see the face of eternity, but maybe for I guess that's the sort of tragedy of him, is he recognized that this was as close as he could get, so he's like, just get out of here, that's. Because I will never be able to be the person that you can be.
Yeah. And like I said, like, best case scenario is you do just step up and do whatever you need to do to be that person. But if you're just at the end of the day, and you can debate this, maybe you're incapable of being that good of a person. Maybe you're just like, that's not something you can figure out on your own. Maybe, whatever reason that you're not going to get your shit together and be the person you need to be. But if you're not going to do that, I guess the second best thing is to, do what Khan did here and just remove yourself.
Yeah, man. A lot of good stuff to talk about here.
Well, we still don't know why Kirk never checked up on them, and but that's been a question people have been asking themselves since 1982. And, Sulu does kind of answer that in an earlier episode. He says, well, starship captains are really busy and they have to pick and choose their priorities. So, but
I think, you could argue that Kirk would have been like, whatever fate that Khan makes will now be his own. If he, for good or ill, will probably come across him, at some point. I don't know if, I guess it is true. Like, Khan can be very dangerous, and he didn't exactly warn people about him either. If they wanted to, dive into that and, parse it out, when, in fact, it's just a slightly weak plot point from Wrath of Khan. I wouldn't mind it happening in the novel Dr. Lear by Kirsten Beyer and David Mack, published by Doubleday in 2026. Doubleday's not around. That was just one of those old publishers, I think. Anyway, but it's you could do a little bit of tidying with that if there's a good story to tell.
Well, that's going to do it for this week, but please come back next week for the backtracking retrospective on Space Seed. And until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Subscribe to YouTube to watch the Tex-Trek podcast live or listen to us later on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Stephen Fothery on socials at TXTrek. Thank you and take care.